Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar for a look at alcohol and other drug prevention, a new practice-based tool for college campuses. Before we get started, I have just a few housekeeping items to run through. Today's presentation will be recorded, and a copy along with the slides will be sent out to all registrants after the presentation. Attendees are in listen-only mode. However, if you'd like to chat with us or ask a question during the presentation, you can do so on the right-hand side of your screen in the GoToWebinar control panel. Finally, we invite you to connect with us on social media by tweeting us at Cognito or using the hashtag CognitoWebinars. I'd now like to introduce today's presenter, Kim Weiland. Kim serves as the head of product for Cognito's education vertical, having previously served as a senior client experience executive. And with that, I'll turn things over to Kim to get us started.
Thank you so much, Scott. Excited to have everyone on today. As Scott mentioned, this program will be recorded. As I'm sitting here watching the snow come down in Philadelphia, thinking of all of those who may not have access to get on today. So if you know of any one of your colleagues, when we send this out to you, you can send on the recording. Want to spend a little bit of time today talking about the product. I want to spend the first piece of that going over sort of why we decided to develop this program, and then actually go through the key learning objectives, the content overview, give you a short demonstration of one of the practice scenarios, and then open it up for Q&A. So as Scott said, I actually joined Cognito a little over 3 years ago, coming from a background of many years in public health and education and adult learning. And I was so excited to be joining Cognito because they had something that was very unique, and that was this ability to bring together this gaming technology and the learning design of role play and practice in this experiential environment, with combining that with many of the skills that are so effective at upscale prevention and really being able to provide people with the skills that they need. At that time, we were focused very heavily around mental and emotional health. We'd been working in higher ed for quite a while on those topics, and we had programming for both faculty and staff and students that actually enabled them to have practice conversations with a friend that they were concerned about. And we knew that that led to behavior change in help seeking, self-efficacy, their ability to feel comfortable knowing when and how to approach somebody they might be concerned about, and connecting with potential resources. So as we were looking at our outcomes, our learning model, and talking with universities, they said, we would love to begin to expand that into other areas that we are working in. So last year, we actually built one around sexual misconduct prevention, and this year we worked on building this program and really focused in on that experiential practice and really bringing that unique learning model through in this program. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we did that. I was very excited to work on this project with a very large team. As I said, Cognito has this very unique learning model and gaming expertise and the ability to build out these practice scenarios. And we worked with many practitioners in this area, and as well as students. And we really wanted to get all of the different voices around what really works, what is going to really drive the promotion of positive behaviors and help reduce negative behavior, and is going to increase self-efficacy. And what we found in all of the research with the practitioners, our understanding of the learning models, is that we really wanted to move beyond definitions. Definitions are important, they are in there gets us all talking on with the same language. But we wanted to make sure that when we were teaching a skill, we were following that up with that experiential practice so that students felt like they had been able to use those skills in a realistic setting and felt much more prepared and confident to use those skills in real life. So one of our reasons for really focusing on that practice is that we know that we can take these evidence-based skills, things like bystander skills, things like setting limits based on your own values, and things like goal setting. We can give you the ability to practice those in real life. And we want to make sure that we're bringing all of those evidence-based skills into those practice scenarios. And it also gives us the ability to tailor to each learner. So there's a couple of ways we tailor within the program. One of them is that there's actually different pathways through the program. Not all students are coming to campus with the same attitudes and behaviors around alcohol and other drugs. Some are non-drinkers, non-users entirely, and they plan to stay that way. Some may be non-drinkers now, but they may expect their experience on campus to involve some drinking, and so that's the path that they want to go down. Or they may already be a mid-level sort of drinker and they want some of that in their college life. They expect that, so they'll go down that middle path. Or they may be coming in there already at a higher level of use. So there's 3 different paths through. I'll show you when we get to that point sort of how they enter into those paths. They can switch if they need to, if they feel like the information is not directly relating to their personal level. But then within each of the practice scenarios, they're going to choose how they're going to interact throughout that, and they'll get feedback that's specific to them. So it really meets the learners where they are and is really helping to not one size fits all a program, but give them feedback that feels specific to them and feels that it relates to their values. So let's go to the next one. I already mentioned that we work with campuses and leaders in this area. We work strongly with our internal instructional designers and our people who are coming from a background as well in adult learning and game design. And that really helps us create those moments where students are getting to engage with those skills and really make the types of decisions that they can use that higher level thinking and really embed those skills. And to do that, we work with a lot of students as well. All of these scenarios come through a lot of conversation with students, with campuses around what are realistic types of scenarios, how do the conversations play out, and how do those practice skills play out. It leads to our ability to not only have them practice in the moment, but also the ability for us to engage them. We're developing discussion guides and others that can continue those conversations. And because this program feels very realistic to them, thankfully, students keep us on track with that. Those follow-up discussions also feel very realistic and a good jumping off point. So we want to make sure, as I said, that this fits in with the prevention strategies on campus. This is just one piece. We know that campuses are looking to really increase skills across different topics. So that's why we wanted to make sure that things like bystander skills, refusal skills, and assertiveness, all of those were taught across all of our programs in a way that support each other, but also support what's going on on campuses. And we point to resources on campus as well, so that this fits into the programming that's happening and the supports that are already on campus. So in this program, we're really focusing on some specific learning objectives. Again, understanding social norms around drinking is a high priority. We get to that very quickly in the program. We also do some of those definitions as you first come in to really make sure that that all speaking the same language. And then we want to come to actually teaching skills and applying those skills. So one of the first ones that we do is those setting your limits and applying refusal skills. We examine the risks associated with alcohol and drug use, but we do it in a way that is really situated within different scenarios. Importantly, we do this in all of our programs, which is recognizing when you may want to identify signs that appear may need help and then seek out additional help, and how those conversation skills work out. We'll go into more detail around that. And then we want to make sure that students have actionable strategies around bystander skills, and they have actionable strategies around their own personal goal setting and plans that they want to set for themselves. So what are some of the skill acquisition that we're working on here? Really that goal and intention and value setting. We talk about limit setting, but it's intended to be based on the students' goals and values. We know, as you guys know, that it's much more likely that a student will relate to and stick to limits if they chose them based on things that are important to them. Then refusal skills. One of the things that we heard loud and clear from students was that they really wanted to fit in, they wanted to feel connected, and they wanted to know how to stick to their limits and refuse in a way that they felt was still enabling them to maintain those relationships. So we've embedded both social norming and refusal skills into that first practice scenario to make them feel comfortable that they can have a good time, they can be connected, and use the refusal skills that feel right for them. We have an entire practice scenario around bystander skills, and then we practice active listening in the helping a friend. That's really based on, we call it MI Light, so that it is motivational interviewing, evidence-based communication skills, but at a level that feels accessible to a college student. So this is just a very quick look at the overall content. So it's 5 modules long. The thing I really want to point out here is that our goal is to, every time we're teaching skills, to very quickly get students into being able to practice those skills in a scenario. Our ultimate goal is to build self-efficacy around these skills and these behaviors, and we know that the best way to do that is to practice it in a realistic and safe setting, so that when it happens in real life, they feel prepared for those moments. So choosing your limits and then using your refusal skills in that first scenario, and then that dashboard is feedback that is personal to the decisions that you made within that. All of our feedback is framed in the positive. So the goal here is to reinforce what students are doing well and nudge them away from things that they could improve on, but all with positive framing. The looking out for a friend is bystander skills, and again, teaching those skills and then very quickly getting them into a practice scenario. And then the last one around recognizing a pattern and talking with a friend. We situate that conversation around talking with a friend, and I'll get more into this later, but one of the things that we have found from our other scenarios and our other programs is that not only is a skill that you learn when talking to a friend, that also increases help-seeking skills if you were to need that for yourself as well. So as I mentioned, you get to choose your own coach. We do not force students to choose. What we heard when we were doing the research on how best to set up these paths, it's that students wanted to be able to pick their own path based on sort of how they felt they personally would see college playing out for them, or it felt right to them. So some other approaches have a quiz that you take and then you're sort of placed into a path. We determined based on many of our interviews that it felt there was more ownership if students were able to pick that themselves. There's actually no names on the final one. You are just given this sort of scenario, and then you get to pick which path you go down. So this is actually the section that we are going to demo, and the choosing your limits is a great piece that I am so excited about because they get to set their own limits in the didactic. They get to think through after they've heard about typical social norms. So we get some of those misperceptions that students have about what drinking at college looks like. We talk about some of the things that students are thinking about when they're maybe thinking about how they might drink or what drinking culture might be for them on campus. And those mirror the types of things that we were hearing from students and from practitioners. And we walk through those. And then after they've sort of gone through that thought process, then we get to setting their limits, and they get to set them themselves. And then they get to go into these two practice scenarios. And those practice scenarios are going to relate back to the limits they set for themselves. So you can't ever choose to get to binge drink. So that's not a limit you can set for yourself, but you can choose to say, I'm going to drink, 2 drinks tonight, and that actually gets carried over into the practice scenario. Or you could say, I'm not going to drink. And so the feedback, as I said, it's going to meet you where you are. It's going to then relate to how you set your limit. And there's actually 2 scenarios in this section, and that's because we heard quite a bit that pre-gaming and at an event were 2 typical places, so we wanted to highlight both of them. The smaller setting potential for pre-gaming as well as there. And the other piece of that is, we talk about number of drinks in a given amount of time and what does a typical drink look like, but the feedback they're going to get is if they said they wanted to stick to 2 limits and they drank those 2 drinks at the pregame, we're going to remind them of that. And so it's just another way of getting at some of these topics in a way that is more built into a gaming realistic experience. As I mentioned, looking out for a friend and these 3 bystander skills of delegate, direct, and distract, they're going to get to practice that. The way the program plays out is you're actually going to follow the same characters throughout the night. And so they would have been at pre-gaming, then at the party, and now one of the characters, Charlie, is going to have had more to drink, and that is the chance that they will get to be a bystander and intervene and use those skills. Interestingly, we made it focus on, so we were also able to have a focus on social norming that felt really natural, because one of the characters, Kevin, doesn't drink at all throughout the evening, and then the player character, those limits are going to be based on what the student set for themselves. And then the recognizing a pattern one, the thing I want to point out here is you've recognized that you're concerned for your friend, you approach your friend within this, and you have that conversation. We wanted to normalize the supporting a friend conversation. We wanted to teach those really important communication skills that are important not only around this topic, but many others, including mental health and supporting a friend if it's sexual violence or whatever the topic is. Those same core skills come into play. One thing that we did emphasize a lot here too, both in the didactic and in the conversation, is it is not on the student to make sure that Charlie changes. It is there for that student to approach them, let them know that they're there to support them, they're concerned about them, and talk about potential resources, really focusing on agency for Charlie in that conversation, raising those resources as questions and letting Charlie talk about which ones feel right for him. But we wanted to make sure, especially since these conversations happen not just on campuses, but maybe within our family and our larger friends groups, there's going to be people we're concerned about. We want to build in that capacity and that skill, with also making sure that students don't feel like they have to take it on them to make sure somebody changes. That's not the goal of that conversation. It's and it's not a one-time conversation. It may be an ongoing conversation. So really wanted to make sure that we focused on that in this section. All right, and then we finish with the SMART goals. Most students have probably at this stage seen something around SMART goals in their past, but the ability to align this to SMART goals and this idea of setting a goal to other areas of their life, and really thinking through what's important to them, what do they want to achieve, how does drinking fit into that. In this one, we look at specifically SMART goals around drinking, but we also talk about that as an overarching goal, an overarching skill they can use around all types of goals and achieving those goals, and how drinking and other substance use would play into that. So let's get to the demo. Scott is going to share his screen and I'll talk through it. I do just want to point out that it goes a little bit slower because it's running through GoToMeeting, but we will share if you want a full demo link with you and you can play through it as well.
That's what I'm talking about. Let's get it.
Okay, I see some people dancing, beer pong, or we can just chill on the steps for a bit. What do you want to do?
So we wanted to make sure that this was still set in a party scene. It was very important for students to see that, because they felt like that might be part of their experience, and that's where they wanted to make sure that it was very important to them to know that they could use these skills in this setting and how that would play out. But knowing everything that's going on right now, we wanted to make sure that they also understood that that might not be safe in these moments. Schools have really specific rules around that right now, but these skills are transferable. And even when it goes back, that we'll still have some message here around the transferability of these skills, because not every student is going to want to go to a party. So we're going to go and just quickly, you can play out these skills in different scenarios. You can play beer pong, you can go dance, you can hang out on the steps. We're going to hang out on the steps. And one of the reasons...
And one lie. Huh. So I tell you 3 things and you're trying to pick the lie?
Yep. And maybe we can say if I guess right, you have to drink.
Not everything's a drinking game, Charlie.
So again, scenario came directly from working with the practitioners and students of what scenarios they expect or have seen as typical, and drinking games came up quite a bit. I think you can probably already tell which character throughout is the non-drinker. Clearly the one who is telling us not everything is a drinking game. You will see throughout the night he has a ton of fun, and that is part of the social norming piece without being making it feel natural for the student. So we're going to talk, and we'll go with I'm cool with drinking.
I'm cool with drinking.
Kevin's up first.
Gotcha.
Well, I'm not going to drink anything, but I took a dance class when I was a kid. I'm really into anime, and I worked for a year on an alpaca farm.
Easy peasy. I've seen you dance, so no doubt you took classes. No disrespect, but anyone who wears an octopus on their shirt is definitely into anime. And I don't think you could wake up early enough to be a farmer boy.
I'm actually kind of iffy on anime. I'm glad you like it though, Ems. And I have no problem getting up early for animals.
Nah, I see that. Guess I have to drink.
Do you though?
Your turn, bud.
Sure.
So if you just want to click on the coach text real quick. So this is going to remind you, you told Charlie you were okay to drink. Remember to keep an eye on how much you drink so you can stick to your limits throughout the night. Clearly, this student has set a limit of drinking for them already. So that information feeds through to this scenario. So we're really quickly going to pick 3 options because we have to tell 2 truths and a lie. So Scott, you can just pick whichever ones feel the best for you.
When I was 4, I threw a rock at a kid on the playground and chipped their tooth.
What did the kid do to you?
Said I smelled weird.
Did you smell weird?
Yeah. I ate a piece of pizza off the street once.
Like you found pizza in a box on the street?
No, like I dropped it and it fell. Cheese side down.
Ugh.
I built the table in my room by hand.
Sick.
Yeah, put finish on them and everything.
All right. We heard a lot of stories about edgy Emmers. So, rock chucking. Pretty hard to believe.
Yeah, especially for someone saying you smell weird. Feels a bit much.
But I could see 4-year-old Emma being a little monster. I'm gonna go true. Does Emma make tables? It's a good question.
I'd buy it.
Yeah, me too. I'm going true. Which brings us to this alleged pizza story.
Gross pizza story.
I mean, Emma would think about it. She obviously hates food waste, but I think she wouldn't go quite that far. So, am I right?
Yeah, all 3. Well done, Charlie.
Charlie, it is unstoppable. So, you lose, you drink. Time for you to make yourself a little something.
So if we go to talk, one of the things that is going to happen in this moment is that she can choose between I'll get myself a mixed drink, and this will provide feedback on what typically is in a mixed drink, as well as the difference between making it yourself or the potential of having somebody else pour it for you, or also give some examples of if this is not the moment she wants to have her next drink, examples of something like, I think the satisfaction of guessing correct should be enough. So Scott, because we're running out of time, we'll wrap up the demo, but it really enables us to get back to all of those pieces we taught in what's a drink size, mixed drinks versus 1 beer, and feed all of those into the conversation in different ways, while also giving the student options on different ways of phrasing those refusal skills. So as I mentioned, we really wanted to make sure that we were using these evidence-based strategies and putting them into these practice environments, because we know that that really helps promote these healthy behaviors. We are working on pilots and research for this already. We have some initial from our data, and that has already shown improvements in student self-efficacy to use these skills. So we'll be continuing that research. We have quite a bit of research again around our ability to build that self-efficacy to use these skills for the programs that we had around mental and emotional health, and our new sexual misconduct prevention program as well. So if anybody is interested in that research, please let us know. Would love to share. And I'll just finish up by saying we also have a program that we were developing at the same time that is a more upstream prevention program that's really aimed at high school students. So if anybody is interested in that as well, it's really looking at, as students are starting to think about potentially drinking, why are they thinking through those things, and really normalizing reaching out to peers to think through, what do I expect to happen? How can I think through some solutions around coping skills and value setting and goal setting as well, and also that idea of help seeking and having peer support in those moments. So many of the upstream skills and protective factors that are so important. And unfortunately, I ran over. So if anybody has any questions, please, there is my email address. I can connect on any questions you might have about the research, the learning design, connect you with somebody on our partnership team if you're interested in getting the demo or finding out about pricing. But very excited to get this program out there so that universities can begin using it.
Great. Thank you, Kim. And thank you to everyone on the line. As we mentioned, we'll be sending out a recording as well as a slide and a copy of the demo to everyone on today's call. Thanks for being with us and have a great afternoon.